welcome to HCS Talks. This is the second season of HCS Talks. I am your host, Superintendent of Hampton City Schools, Raymond Haynes. Our goal is to educate, inform, and even entertain both our community and listeners beyond. Each episode covers a variety of topics from education and student success to the work of our teachers, support staff, parents, and community partners. We will also dive into programs, initiatives, and more, offering something valuable and informative for everyone. So we hope you will tune in and continue listening to HCS Talks. Today, I have the opportunity to sit down with Dr. Brittny Gainey, one of our extraordinary Hampton City Schools school social workers, who is also a licensed clinical social worker. As we kick off another school year, this time can bring excitement, but it also may stir up a mix of emotions for many. Students might feel anxious about adjusting to new teachers, making friends, handling their workload, and being away from family and even their pets. They may also worry about meeting academic expectations, fitting in with peer groups, and navigating the school environment, including hallways and the cafeteria. So today, Dr. Gainey is here to share insights on managing stress as we embark on the start of the school year. And we certainly thank you, Dr. Gainey, for being here for the second time. I know you aired last year during our podcast and engaged in some counseling sessions for me personally. But today we're going to stick to advice and guidance in regards to our young people starting off the start of the school year, as well as, I guess, some tips for staff members, too. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation and hope our listeners will gain some useful insights today. So for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, like I mentioned, Dr. Gainey joined us last year before the holidays to talk about mental health, wellness, and coping with holiday stress. But before we dive into today's topic, could you please reintroduce yourself for any of our new listeners?
Absolutely. So again, my name is Dr. Brittny Gainey. I serve and support students through Hampton City Schools as a school social worker. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, so I have worked in different capacities for the last 10 to 12 years addressing adult and child and adolescent mental health. The other cool thing about myself is I'm a mom. So when we talk about going back to school, it's something that impacts our community of listeners, but it's something that I'm dealing with as well.
Outstanding. So how long have you been with Hampton City Schools?
This is my 4th year of being with Hampton City Schools. It feels like I've been here forever, but it's only been 4 years.
Well, we love having you here, and thank you for choosing Hampton City Schools.
Absolutely.
And like I always say, thank you for choosing to stay as well.
Absolutely.
I know you provide a valuable resource to our students and families, and what you bring to the table, we feel is beyond reproach. So with the new school year fast approaching, is it common to experience stress and anxiety around this time? And if so, what are some effective ways to manage it from your standpoint?
Absolutely. I think going back to school can be very exciting. You know, students have an opportunity to reconnect with their friends, maybe see some of their old teachers, get back in those routines. But it also, as we mentioned before, it can create some anxiety and stress. So now I have homework. I'm getting back into a different flow, a different routine. Maybe there were some negative experiences that they had the previous year and, you know, trying to wrestle with some of those things. And just the thought of what I'm going to encounter, that can produce a lot of anxiety as well as stress.
Absolutely. So I know we talk about in the Portrait of a Hampton Graduate, and I mentioned this to you in some of our conversations, one of the critical components of that is a positive sense of self and purpose. Can you talk through that and what that means for a young person, even starting school for the first time, or for young people transitioning from elementary to middle, or even middle to high?
Yeah. I think one thing that we don't think about as parents is the expectations that we put on our kids, right? And so as adults throughout the summer and throughout, you know, the regular academic year, our routine is the same, right? But our students, they take a break. And so it's a relief. But then knowing I'm going back and I have to live up to the portrait of a Hampton graduate, or I have to live up to the expectations of my parents, that can produce a lot of stress, you know, because they don't want to disappoint us, but they don't also want to disappoint themselves as well. And so I think we have to manage our expectations and remind our students that you're going back and I need for you to do your best. I need for you to try your best, and it's okay to make mistakes, and you're not going to be perfect. And when things don't happen the way you want them to happen, I'm here to listen. I'm a sounding board for you. And then also you have a community of support that can help you as well, and identify who those individuals are in their network and their community of support.
So making that connection with a trusted adult, someone they can connect to in the building or...
Yes. Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. So when we talk about transitioning, especially for our younger kids, in the beginning, you can show them a picture of the school. Maybe the school has like a virtual tour. Maybe there's an opportunity to attend orientation. Take them around the school so they're familiar with where they're going. And then if there's still some angst about that, say, I know this person in the building. This is someone who you can tap into. This is someone who you can connect with if you are feeling overwhelmed, if you are feeling stressed. And then that person, the goal is not to, just discuss everything that they're worried about. Engage them in a fun activity. Say, we can do this to get your mind off of everything that's going on so we can refocus and you can be the best student that you need to be. And the other thing is we need to do that as parents too.
All right.
Right? A lot of us are worried about our babies going back to school. So maybe we need to take a tour of the school. Maybe we need to go to orientation so we can say, they're safe.
Right.
They're okay. They have these things going on. Their classroom is beautiful. The teacher is qualified. I'm going to be okay as a parent, and I have to check that at the door.
And I think it's important for parents to know who they can connect to in the building to get a sense of being at peace about their young person being in school with us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think a fun way to do this is go to the bus stop. Like some of us just like to send our kids to the bus stop. Go to the bus stop. See who those parents are, So sometimes we may not be able to get into the building, but we can meet people in our community to say, my kid is going to the 3rd grade. Who is your child's teacher? Can we connect? Can we collaborate? Talk to the bus driver, because that's the first person that your that your kids are going to see before they hit that building. So make sure you make a connection with that person as well.
Great advice indeed. What other mental health challenges tend to arise, you think, during this period?
So grief and loss. So for some of us, we have had an amazing summer. And so letting that go, And I think the other thing that may surprise us that we may not want to talk about is our parents. You may actually experience some relief, and that's okay. We may not want to say that out loud, but it's just like, whew, I'm glad these kids are going back. That's real. That is a real thought. And so, yes, there's anxiety, there's stress, there's worry, but there's also this sense of relief where I can finally breathe.
Right.
And so...
and it's okay to feel that way.
It's okay. Yes. It's okay, because once you say it, then I guarantee you there's someone else that say, me too. I'm so glad these kids are out of the house. I'm so glad that they're back to their structure and the routine, and the kids are probably saying the same thing.
Absolutely. So let's take a different perspective at this point, just from the thought of even staff members returning. If they are 10-month employees and they're returning back to work come next week, what challenges do you think they tend to face, and what are your thoughts in regards to providing some insight for them and returning as well?
I mean, I'll be very transparent. When I had to come back, I was in tears. I boo-hooed because I had been with my kids for a certain amount of time, and it was concentrated, uninterrupted time because I intentionally took a break from working and from people. And so I wanted to just focus on them. And so it was nice to know that I could be honest with my coworkers and say, you know what? I'm having a hard time. I'm excited to see you guys. I'm excited to re-engage, but I'm also kind of sad because I'm going to miss my babies. And I think it's okay to be all of those things. We can have multiple truths. I can be excited about coming back to work. I can be excited about engaging with my students and coworkers, but I can also miss what I've just experienced. And so I think it's important to share space with that. And I think it's important to be able to communicate that without guilt, shame, or judgment.
And just being able to verbalize it and have someone to bounce thoughts off of, and having that support system and structure in place, we know is critically important as well.
Yeah, and it's also give yourself time. Don't think that you're going to adjust right away. To say, what, I can give myself time. I think the beautiful thing about our schedule is we start on Monday, the 26th, and then the 30th, we're off.
Right.
And so I have reminded my kids that constantly you have 4 days and then you get a break so we can readjust. We can kind of re-examine, what those first few days have looked like. And now we can set some other goals.
So you look at it. So that Friday that they're off on that Friday, and then that following Monday as well. So that gives you give some time, 4 days to make some adjustments.
Yes, absolutely.
Then there's a little break, and then you're back into the swing and full throttle of the school year.
Absolutely.
So what resources are available for help?
Yeah.
And not just from the students, but also for staff as well.
Yeah, and so we talked about this before. Care Solace is a good one. So you're able to connect with any of the support staff in your school, and they can help make recommendations for that. EAP, the Employee Assistance Program, I think that's a very underutilized program, but it's a fantastic program that's offered through our insurance. And usually you get about 6 sessions, and you're able to talk about what subject is kind of you're dealing with, you're grappling with currently. And then if you need more, they can address that there. But I also say, look at your social network. So if you're connected with any type of churches or any other organizations, they may have support for you, but then also your own community. Like I mentioned, those bus stop conversations, there are people that are right under your nose that are experiencing some of those same things, and they may be able to provide immediate support, but as opposed to waiting for you to get mental health services with another agency.
Right. We all know before you can help others, you have to first make certain that you're okay.
That's right. That's right. And social media is sometimes, it can be a gift and it can be a curse, but maybe there is a support group or something that you can kind of look at there. I'm a reader, so I love books, so maybe there's a self-help book that you would like to read, and maybe start like a book club for parents who are transitioning their children. So you're able to tap in some of those other avenues.
So you mentioned, Dr. Gainey, Care Solace. How does one connect with Care Solace? How do they go about accessing that? Yeah,
so we have links on our website, but our Hampton City Schools website. But like I also said, talking to some of the support staff. So maybe your school counselor, maybe the school social worker, or just contacting admin. And so once you make that connection with them, they're able to connect you with Care Solace. And the wonderful thing about that resource is they do a lot of the footwork for you. And so you don't have to look for all the agencies to support you. They do that for you, and they're able to kind of be that third party to connect you to that resource. And then if it does not work, they'll put that legwork in again to make sure that you're connected to the proper resource for you and for your family.
Nice. So if someone doesn't have access to those resources or they aren't available, what other alternatives exist?
Yeah. So within our department, we have something called the Hampton Roads Resource Guide, the social work department, and that has a lot of different resources. So some of those are mental health resources, but some of those are parenting groups like Healthy Families. They also include maybe like crisis centers, other support groups. So if you're not able to access Care Solace, then you can go to our Hampton Roads Resource Guide, and it provides a lot of other resources for you to engage in as well.
Excellent. So let's discuss self-care. I know we talked about this, sort of hit or miss throughout our conversation thus far, but what are some ways individuals can practice self-care?
So I love talking about self-care because we have an opportunity to kind of dispel some of the misconceptions that self-care is getting your hair done, is getting your nails done. Sometimes it's like going on vacations, and those things can help our well-being, but they're not necessarily self-care. Those are things that we should be doing anyway. Like that's self-management. So self-care is intentional, means that I am doing this on purpose. Self-care is integrative. So self-care is something that I should be making part of my everyday life. It's not an afterthought. I don't earn self-care. Self-care is something I should just be doing naturally. And self-care is individualized. For me, what works may not be the same thing that works for you for self-care. Self-care may mean setting boundaries. Self-care for me may say I have to say no to some things. Self-care may actually be telling somebody that I'm happy that my kids are going back to school, because I am talking about something that's really important for me, and I'm setting that boundary to say, I've had enough, and I need for them to go somewhere else. So I think self-care is not just what we do, but it's how we do it and why we do it. And sometimes it's our state of being and not necessarily our state of doing.
So self-care is should be a part of routines and daily habits.
Absolutely.
And activities, whereas the nails and hair and what have you are more management.
Right. And self-care doesn't have to, it's that maintenance, right? And so self-care doesn't have to be costly. Self-care could mean sitting down and reading a book. Self-care may mean taking time out so I can watch my favorite show. But what I love about self-care is I'm actually verbalizing this is something that I need. Right. Not, it'll be okay. I'll just do this just because, no, I need to do this so I can go ahead and I can fill my cup. And that's important.
So some of those self-care techniques, activities you just mentioned, that holds true to young people too, or yes?
Absolutely. Why not? My son sometimes will say, Mommy, I just need to go to my room. That's his self-care. He said, he doesn't tell me that I'm getting on his nerves, but my brother is getting on my nerves and I need some space. That's his self-care.
Right. And being able to verbalize or articulate that too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How do we go about helping young people to understand that it's okay to verbalize your self-care and what you need as a whole? Are there things that we do in school, or you all running groups about that, or how does that work?
Absolutely. So I think one thing we can ask kids is, what do you need? I think a normal question is, how are you doing? But then sometimes we need to ask, what do you need to feel safe? What do you need to feel secure? What do you need so you don't feel as overwhelmed? And allow them to tell you that. Sometimes it is that they just need space. Sometimes they need a minute. Sometimes they need to engage differently. One thing that I love is just having an opportunity to go outside. I just need some fresh air. And if
actually go outside?
Go outside.
Young
Open
folks
the
go
windows.
Outside now? Do they go? Have they returned to going back outside, or are they still inundated with the latest technical gadgets that are out there?
I think they do both, and they do both well. And I think as adults, we need to encourage them to have more of that outside time. And if you don't like going outside, we can kind of simulate you being outside. So we have something on our department page called a virtual calming room. And on that virtual calming room, it's a hub, and it has a lot of links to a lot of different videos, calming strategies. And there's one video that simulates you walking through a forest. And so I may not be able to go outside, but maybe while I'm doing my work, I have that video on where it makes me feel like I'm walking outside, or I have sounds of the beach or the sounds of the rain, or maybe, during September and October, maybe there's a fireplace that's crackling. And so that's bringing a sense of calm. It's taking me to a happy space, even though I can't directly engage in some of those activities.
Nice. Nice. Great strategies and techniques. I always appreciate hearing your insight on things.
Absolutely.
And how meaningful and impactful it is as well. I made it a point to not, of course, we want to ensure that our young people transition back to school rather smoothly, but also want to ensure that our staff members are taking care of themselves, and that we have resources and support and can share with them what we can provide to ensure they transition back smoothly as well. I think all of those components are critically important to the work that we do, and if we're going to ensure that young people are prepared to display what it means to be the portrait of a Hampton graduate, we need to ensure that we provide the appropriate and adequate resources for them to do so.
Right.
As we close, Dr. Gainey, is there anything else you would like to add?
Breathe. Take time to take a breath and breathe.
Yes, ma'am.
I think we feel so many things in our body, and we don't pay attention to those things. But one way to give our body permission to do what it needs to do is to breathe. Great
advice indeed. This year, are you doing anything different in your role in comparison to last year or the previous years? Or, your responsibilities and assignments still the same, just for the listening audience?
My responsibilities and assignments are pretty much the same. I am maintaining Dr. Haynes, but one thing in our department that I love that we are doing, and I'm part of that, is we have a more clinical focus. And so a lot of folks in our department are becoming licensed clinical social workers. And I love that because that means that we see things differently, we assess things differently, and we address things differently. And so I'm very excited to be a part of that work.
I'm always proud of our social workers and the work that you do, because you also know that's part of my background.
That's
as well.
right. Social workers stand up.
I champion the cause and work that our social workers do, and realize how critically important your role is with the school system. So certainly thank you, Dr. Gainey, for being here today and shedding light on the importance of mental health. I'm confident our listeners have gained, once again, some valuable insight from your expertise, just as I have and always do. And to our listeners, remember, education is the most powerful weapon you could use to transform the world. As one community, one transformation, we remain dedicated to ensuring academic excellence for every child, every day, whatever it takes. See you next week.
Listen to learn more about Hampton City Schools. New episodes of HCS Talks drop on Thursdays. Subscribe and listen to HCS Talks. HCS Talks is a Hampton City Schools production.